It was not just televised. It was streamed, caught on cameras with diverse pixel capacities, mounted on different gadgets, showing varied angles, all culminating in one story, a story we shall tell.
This is what it looks like right now.
These men terrorized Ol Kalou for weeks during the Member of National Assembly by-election campaign period. Then,
they are leaving.
On the voting day, they upscaled their terror multiple times. They walked with various types of firearms, brandishing big guns, assault rifles, pistols, name it. They had tear gas canisters.
And they are masked.
They had tasers. They handcuffed people, their victims. Bulky jackets were a signature in most of their outfits. They covered their faces in balaclavas. They attacked citizens, attacked and injured innocent voters. They targeted journalists. Or better stated, they targeted the evidence the journalists carried. The government says it is investigating them, that it does not know who they are. But our investigation does. The queues snaked in and through polling stations, making it unmistakable that it was voting day in Ol Kalou constituency, Nyandarua County, July 16th, 2026. A lot stood out, from the long files of citizens out to vote, the sheer effort put in ensuring as many as possible, young and old, voted. But these were easily dwarfed by the brazen, open, unmitigated spate of violence and intimidation meted on the people, on voters, and on journalists. And woe unto you if you had a camera rolling and was spotted.
Nasema shida ni nini?
Chukua hiyo kwa mfuko. Ika kitu kwa mfuko. Ika kitu kwa mfuko. Basi wewe, bora hiyo. Hiyo mkono ingine. Wacha. Toa hiyo yote. Bora yote. Hingine baba. Mwingine iko hapo. Ziko mbili tu hapa.
Nimekupa simu tatu.
Na kwa power bank na hii simu mbili. Ziko hapa tu hapa chini. Ingiza mkono hapa boyo. Hapa chini. Hapana. Tangulie. Twende ile ingine huko.
Through all their actions, the dreaded men appeared keen on achieving something very specific. They were visibly bidding for someone. But who? A candidate or a higher power? They targeted polling stations, particularly those with huge populations. The voters stood their ground, some openly confronting them. Others blocking access to polling stations. As a result, shots were fired. Tear gas canisters were lobbed. Peace was pierced through, shattered, and trampled underfoot. Friday, July 10th, 2026. Mawingo, Ol Kalou constituency. It was our first assignment inside a campaign rally in support of the United Democratic Alliance UDA candidate Samuel Mushinanyaga, after weeks of receiving and observing complaints from residents about alleged voter bribery, inducements through government projects, and politically motivated violence. We arrived shortly after 8 a.m. The morning was cold. A thick mist hung over the rolling hills of Nyandarua. Attendees slowly converged at the venue. But long before the politicians arrived, something caught our attention. Several lorries began arriving carrying water pipes. Residents told us the pipes were intended to support water connectivity projects in the area. The deliveries came amid heightened political activities in Ol Kalou, where development projects had become a dominant feature of the by-election campaign period. As crowds continued gathering, a convoy of vehicles carrying political leaders and their entourages began arriving. Among them were a number of vehicles whose registration numbers were either removed, concealed, or had the letters and digits altered. As the vehicles drove towards the venue, moving past the people lined up alongside the way, some occupants hopped out and melted into the crowd. At first glance, they appeared ordinary. But our cameras would spend the entire day tracking them, where they moved, who they spoke to, the signals they exchanged, and the roles they appeared to play throughout the meeting and beyond. The rally was spearheaded by Laikipia East Member of Parliament Mwangi Kiunjuri, who made an emphatic appeal for residents to support UDA candidate Mushinanyaga. The meeting came just a day after IEBC chairperson Erastus Ethekon publicly warned that violence and political intolerance could force the commission to postpone or even cancel the Ol Kalou by-election. It also came days after a widely circulated video emerged in which Nakuru Town East Member of Parliament David Gikaria spoke about spending 1.2 million shillings on a campaign event.
I had to go home and get another 800,000. Jana peke yake hapa kwenu nilitumia 1.2 million.
But while speeches were taking place at the front of the crowd, our attention increasingly shifted elsewhere, to the men moving quietly around the gathering, and to one vehicle in particular, a black Nissan X-Trail. It had no visible registration plates, but had some distinctive things to it: its rims. An antennae mounted at the left front around the junction between the windscreen and the bonnet. Then, the individuals associated with it. At one point, our cameras captured a man opening the vehicle's boot. He was dressed in a jacket and carried a sling bag across his chest. An earpiece was visible. Moments later, several men approached and engaged him in a conversation. Some carried walkie-talkies. Our cameras followed him throughout the day. From this point onward, we refer to him as a sling bag man. The details matter. His shoes, his sling bag, his earpiece. The maroon jacket visible inside the Nissan X-Trail's boot, because these details would become important later in our investigation. As the meeting progressed, our undercover cameras captured what appeared to be the distribution of money to attendees. Women were directed into lines. Our hidden cameras recorded individuals receiving cash. The recipients were grouped into threes and given 1,000 shillings to share among themselves. If this was divided equally, each of them would receive 333 shillings. The cash handouts did not leave out the elderly. Here you see old women on the queues. Men, young and old as well, were instructed to sit on the grass nearby. They too were given money. Our undercover cameraman was positioned close enough to capture the exchanges at close range. The footage shows cash being handed out repeatedly. Several individuals appear to coordinate the exercise. Among them is former Laikipia County Assembly Speaker Patrick Waigwa Biliha. In our footage, he is seen holding bundles of cash and distributing money to individuals in the queue. Another man, dressed in a heavy jacket, appears to act as the custodian of the cash. Those distributing money are repeatedly seen returning to him before resuming distribution. From this point onward, we refer to him as the cash custodian. Another figure repeatedly appears in the footage. He wears a black NY cape and a grey shirt. His face is clearly visible. He is seen issuing money to people in the queue. At the time, he appeared to be just another participant in the operation. But he would later become a central figure in this investigation, because on a different day and at a different event, our cameras would again capture him, this time wearing a pink t-shirt. Again, by our footage involved in distributing money. Later that same day, he would be seen opening a vehicle door for Communications Authority Chairman Charles Karondo. And later still, a man appearing to share the same physical characteristics, clothing trail, and movements would emerge wearing a balaclava during violent confrontations involving supporters of the Democracy for the Citizens Party, DCP. Through open source intelligence techniques, visual comparisons, and clothing analysis, our investigations would begin connecting these appearances. The pink t-shirt, the NY cape, the physical build, and eventually the balaclava. From this point onward, we refer to him as the NY Cape Man. But that evidence forms part of a later episode. Back at the Mawingo meeting, another man also drew our attention. He wore a cap. He appeared to participate in the distribution of money. At various points, what appears to be a firearm is visible at his waist. A walkie-talkie is visible in his hand. From this point onward, we refer to him as the walkie-talkie man. The following day, our investigation would again encounter a man bearing striking similarities, this time driving a number plate-less Toyota Prado, a vehicle that would later become central to another incident involving masked men and political violence. And then there was the sling bag man, the man from the Nissan X-Trail, the man with the earpiece, the sling bag, the same Nissan X-Trail with its unique rims and front antennae. All details our cameras captured well, all details that would resurface later. At the meeting itself, another prominent political figure appears in our undercover footage. Kieni Member of Parliament Anthony Wainaina Njoroge, popularly known as Wainaina Shieni. Our hidden camera captures him moving through the area where we see cash being distributed. Moments earlier, our main broadcast camera had recorded him addressing the crowd from the stage. The footage allows you, our viewer, to compare the two recordings directly. His exact role is unclear. What is not disputed is his presence at the meeting. By the end of the day, the politicians had left. The crowds had dispersed. But our investigation was only gaining momentum because the faces, the vehicles, the clothing, the communication devices, and the cash distribution activities documented in Mawingo would reappear elsewhere at different meetings on different days and eventually at scenes of political violence. The question would become whether those appearances were coincidental or whether they reveal a coordinated operation running beneath the surface of the Ol Kalou by-election campaign. "24 hours after the Mawingo meeting, our investigation followed the UDA campaign trail once again. This time, the venue was Moiri Primary School. The rally was led by Laikipia East Member of Parliament Mwangi Kiunjuri and attended by UDA candidate Mushina Nyaga. By now, several of the faces we had documented at Mawingo were becoming familiar, and once again, our cameras would find them around what appeared to be the distribution of cash to voters. Former Laikipia County Assembly Speaker Patrick Waigwa Biliha was again present. This time, he appeared in a blue shirt. Our cameras again captured him in the area where money was being issued to attendees. The faces were changing clothes, but many of the patterns remained the same. The man we identified in Mawingo as the NY Cape man was back. Only this time, he was dressed in a pink t-shirt. The man we called the cash custodian was also present. He is wearing what is seemingly the same heavy jacket, or one that is very similar to the one he had on the previous day as captured on camera. The black Nissan X-Trail also returned. The same distinctive rims, the same antennae mounted near the front, the same vehicle that had caught our attention at Mawingo. And so too did the sling bag man. Throughout the meeting, our cameras captured him moving repeatedly through the area where money was being distributed, back and forth, scanning the surroundings, interacting with individuals around the operation. His movements appeared deliberate, and he was not alone. Several other men moved around the venue in what appeared to be a coordinated manner. Our secret cameras captured them repeatedly, moving between groups, communicating, positioning themselves strategically around the gathering. Among those repeatedly appearing in the footage was a woman dressed in a red polo shirt and black trousers with white stripes running down the sides. She, as well, appeared around the area where money was being distributed. Around the venue were numerous other men. Our cameras occasionally captured what appeared to be handcuffs attached to their waists. Another figure repeatedly appeared in our footage, a tall man wearing khaki trousers and a maroon jacket. He was not the sling bag man, but his clothing immediately stood out, because a day earlier, when the sling bag man opened the trunk of the Nissan X-Trail, our cameras captured a maroon jacket inside. Now, a man wearing what appeared to be a remarkably similar jacket was moving throughout the venue. This report will refer to him as the maroon jacket man. Also visible at the meeting was Communications Authority Chairman Charles Karondo. As the event drew to a close, attendees began dispersing. The politicians departed, and a convoy of vehicles began leaving the venue. But our investigation was far from over. Using our secret cameras, we joined the traffic leaving the meeting. Directly ahead of us was a number plateless Toyota Prado.
Nini endelea?
Behind the wheel was the man we had identified a day earlier as the walkie-talkie man. Inside the vehicle were numerous occupants. As traffic slowed, we filmed individuals repeatedly hopping in and out of the Prado. The footage showed far more activity than would normally be expected around a departing campaign convoy. One familiar face was immediately noticeable. A man we had first documented at Mawingo, the man in the black trench coat. The same coat, the same appearance, the same baton we had observed him carrying the previous day. From this point onward, we refer to him as the black trench coat man. As our vehicle continued behind the convoy, we captured something unusual. The black trench coat man removed his coat. Underneath, he was wearing a green shirt. The convoy approached the main road, and then something noteworthy happened. Ahead of us was a DCP roadshow truck. In this footage, the vehicle is the green one on the upper corner of the frame. Separately, our investigation also obtained footage from an individual traveling inside the DCP sound truck. The two recordings capture the same moment from different perspectives. The convoy approaching, the DCP vehicle ahead, and then sudden movement. The woman in the red polo shirt walked towards the driver's side of the Prado, the same Prado being driven by the walkie-talkie man, the same Prado from which our cameras had captured numerous occupants entering and exiting. Moments later, several men emerged, but something had changed. They were now wearing balaclavas. They are now moving rapidly toward the DCP sound truck. Several appear to be armed. One individual appears to draw a firearm. A tear gas canister is deployed. Chaos erupts. As the men run, some appear to have handcuffs attached to their waists. The black trenchcoat man is among those seen leaving the vehicle. He is now wearing the green shirt visible beneath the coat moments earlier. At one point, we see him mounting a motorcycle and moving in the direction of the fleeing DCP vehicle. One individual involved in the confrontation is captured without a balaclava. He passes directly in front of our secret camera. His face is clearly visible. Another Prado driving immediately ahead of the Prado ahead of us is the vehicle in which Communications Authority Chair Charles Karondo is traveling. From the car he is in, another man wearing a balaclava emerges. Our cameras capture what appears to be handcuffs attached to his person As he moves toward the DCP soundtrack, the confrontation unfolds rapidly. Multiple cameras, multiple angles, multiple vehicles. And many of the same individuals our investigation had documented at campaign meetings only hours earlier. Whether these appearances were coincidental or evidence of a coordinated operation is a question that remains central to this investigation. In the next chapter, we begin examining the footage frame by frame. The vehicles, the clothing, the movements, and the faces behind the balaclavas. By the afternoon of that same day, things had moved beyond campaign meetings and into violence. We were not present when the next events unfolded, but within hours, reports began emerging from Kahuho Center in Shokereria, Gilgil constituency. The location sits along the Nyahururu, Ol Kalou, Gilgil Road, the same route taken by the DCP roadshow truck as it fled the confrontation we had documented earlier. The same route along which our cameras had recorded vehicles pursuing the truck. It is Saturday, the 11th day of July 2026. It is exactly 5 days to the by-elections of Ol Kalou constituency, which will happen on the 16th of July 2026. And it's also 2 days before the close of the official campaign period, which will be ending on Monday. Now, this is an area called Kahuho. It is along the Ol Kalou Gilgil area, or Gilgil town. And the most interesting bit about Kahuho is that this is not in Ol Kalou constituency. In fact, this is in the neighboring Gilgil constituency. In fact, it is not in Nyandarua County. This is Nakuru County. But moments ago, before I got here, there was violence meted on the people through what they describe as people who had balaclavas, had their identities covered, and had their vehicle number plates removed. They got here, fired shot rounds in the air, and meted violence on the people here. This is the aftermath. A couple of motorbikes have been spoiled through this violence, and remember, this is 5 days before the by-election that will happen on the 16th of July 2026. Residents we interviewed in Shokereria described a dramatic scene.
Mimi nilikuwa shamba nikilima. Dakika kidogo nikasikia risasi zimefyatuliwa, tunakaa karibu na lami. Kukimbia kukuja nikapata kuna gari ziko hapo 3 hazina number plate na watu wameshajaa kwa barabara, wamejifunga mask, ni macho tu imebakia. Wengine walikuwa wanaingia kwa mahindi ya neighbor shamba nearby, wanapiga simu, wenyewe wanajaribu kutoa hiyo mask ndio wapige simu, but ukienda kuangalia hivi wanarudisha mask mbio, wanajifunika. Sisi wenye tulikuwa karibu wakachukua simu zetu, wakasema tuweke pattern tuangalie hata kama tumewapiga picha. Wakati walipata hatujawapiga picha, wakasema mambo iko sawa, wakarudisha maski zao wakaenda.
Ni hiyo gari imeanguka pale, hiyo yenye ina number plate, na ilikuwa na watu wengi sana. Hizo magari kubwa kubwa ilikuwa na magunzi, wamejifunga, imebaki tu macho. Venye wameenda kusaidiwa, gari ikasimama, kuinusha gari tu ikasimama, wakaanza kupiga wenye wamewasaidia.
According to multiple witnesses, a number of vehicles were traveling at high speed behind the DCP truck when one of the pursuing Toyota Prado's driver lost control and the vehicle toppled over, finally resting on its side. To the eyewitnesses, it appeared to be an ordinary road accident.
Na wakati ilianguka, sisi kama wakaaji wa hapa tukatokea kwenda kuokoa maisha ya wale ambao walikuwa wameumia. Na wakati tulikaribia pale, gari ilinunuliwa na wakaenda. Baada ya dakika kidogo, tukaona ile gari tena imerudi. Na wakini walitufukuza. Tukaona gari imerudi na wamekuja na mtu na wamemfunga mikono na miguu na wakaanza kumchapa. Walikuwa wamemfunga na kamba. Na wakaanza kumchapa. Wakati tulienda kukaribia, tena wakatufukuza na wakatufuata.
Angered by the incident, locals barricaded sections of the road. Their demand was simple.
Ndio barabara watu wakasema hatutapigiwa kwetu because it was a second scenario, kuonekana vita hapa Gilgil, hapa Shokereria. Ilikuwa mara ya pili. So ikaonekana ya kwamba hatutaendelea hivyo, hatutapigwa. Sisi hatupigi kura Ol Kalou, mbunge wetu hajakufa, Martha Wangari bado wako hai. Sisi hatuna siasa hapa, tunatazamia kuona ni nani atachaguliwa upande wa Ol Kalou. Sasa tukasema ni vizuri tufunge barabara ili OCPD wa hapa Gilgil aweze na OCS waweze kutueleza kwa nini watu wanapigwa hapa, wanapigwa na marisasi, wanaumizwa. Hiyo ndio imekuwa hapa, na baadaye wakati barabara imefungwa, watu wakingojea OCPD wa Gilgil akuje na OCS na area chief akuje.
But as the roadblocks went up, more vehicles began arriving. Among them was a vehicle we immediately recognized, a black Nissan X-Trail.
Wale jamaa wamerudi na zile Prado ambazo hazina namba. Wamekuja wamefunga macho na vitu kama zile za kutoa asari kwa mzinga. Wamefunga macho kabisa na vitu za brown. Wamekuja tena wamepiga marisasi real buduki real na risasi real. Wamepiga, baadaye wametukimbisha kwa mashamba. Tumepotea kwa sababu hapa ni nyumbani, tukakimbia. Wengine wameumia miguu, wengine wameumia mikono. Mapikipiki za watu ambao wabodawa ambao wanabebea hapa pia na wao pikipiki zao zimevunjwa na zimepigwa dashboard zote. Sasa hatujui ni makosa gani sisi tumefanya.
The same vehicle with some key distinctives which we had documented at Mawingo. We obtained still photographs placing the Nissan X-Trail at the scene. Additional footage, though less clear, appears to show the same vehicle moving through the area during the confrontation. And then another familiar detail emerged. In both still photographs and video footage reviewed by this investigation, a man wearing a maroon jacket and khaki trousers appears at the scene. This time, however, his face is concealed beneath a black balaclava. The clothing immediately stood out because only hours earlier, we had filmed the maroon jacket man moving through the UDA campaign meeting at Muiri Primary School. We cannot conclusively identify the individual in the balaclava, but the similarities in clothing and physical appearance are striking. It was here that journalists came under attack. Among them was KTN cameraman Kimani Wakiru. A photograph captured by Standard Media Group photographer Joseph Kipsang shows a hooded individual charging forward holding a wooden baton. The man wears a black jacket and blue trousers. The image does not capture the person being charged at, but two journalists visible within the frame display expressions of shock and fear. Both later identified their apparent target as Kimani Wakiru, who we later interviewed. His account provides a chilling description of the events.
We reached a place during the campaigns, a place called Shokereria, and there we found the road had been barricaded by residents. So when we alighted from our vehicle, we started filming. But within a few minutes, I just saw a car behind me. A black Prado just swerved, almost hit me. And then as I was filming, it had passed me, so I was just behind it. When I was filming, the car just stopped, and 4 men wearing balaclavas. You couldn't tell who they were. One of them, the driver, alighted from that car with an AK-47, a black AK-47.
Gunfire followed. At the time, Wakiru was still recording.
So I was filming while running, until I reached somewhere I fell.
His camera captured portions of the incident. The footage is shaky, chaotic, and consistent with someone attempting to flee while filming. As he ran for safety, Wakiru says another familiar vehicle arrived behind the Prado, the black Nissan X-Trail. According to Wakiru, men emerged from the vehicle and moved toward him. He believes they may have suspected he had recorded the shooting.
I had to run literally so that I don't get the beating, because I believe the target was maybe my camera, because I was filming whatever was going on. They shot in the air, tried to remove the barricades, but by that time I had fled. Together with my colleagues, we fled until a place where they just gave up and went and started removing the barricades.
Later footage captures the Nissan X-Trail speeding away from the scene. But the violence was not over. Another video would later emerge, not from journalists, not from media houses, but from a private citizen. The footage places the DCP roadshow truck at Pembroke Bridge in Gilgil. The vehicle appears immobilized, surrounded, under attack. Two men are visible attacking the lorry. One of them appears to be wearing a maroon jacket and khaki trousers. His face is concealed beneath a black balaclava. The similarities to the individual these investigations documented earlier are difficult to ignore. They damage the vehicle. At one point, they appear to attempt to set it on fire. What makes the footage even more disturbing is what is not in plain sight. Inside the truck's holding compartment were several occupants, most of them women. They had hidden inside as the attack unfolded. Had the vehicle caught fire, the consequences could have been catastrophic.
Now this is Pembroke area. This is in Gilgil constituency along the Gilgil Ol Kalou route. On this side is Gilgil, and on the other side is Ol Kalou. Not very near, because you still have to travel a distance before getting into Ol Kalou constituency of Nyandarua County. Now that video that has been doing rounds on social media of a campaign trucks belonging to one of the political parties, especially the DCP, and it being attacked, that attack happened at this particular bridge. Just to make you understand what is happening here, right above the underpass is a railway, an active railway, and trains have been passing there. So the truck that had been chased all the way from Ol Kalou, the driver was trying to find safety towards Gilgil, and because of the height of the truck, he could not pass beyond that particular point, and that is where that particular attack happened.
Among those inside was a mechanic. We tracked him down and interviewed him. His account is equally alarming. He says that as he attempted to escape on foot, he was pursued.
Tuliruka wote. Mimi nikaenda kivyangu, yeye akaenda kivyake. So mimi niliteremka huko chini kwa jeshi, hata nilikuwa nakaribia kwa jeshi ndio niingie kwa nipate usaidizi. Kumbe hao wako na nduzi. Nduzi nikashtuka, hata tulikuwa na farasi hapo. Wakashuka wakanishika wakitoka panda kirikiri, wakanirudisha. Kunirudisha wakapita kwa gari, wakakuja wakaniingisha kwa Prado. Tukaenda nao wakinipika, wakanifikisha pale mbele, wakanitoa kwa hii Prado wakaniweka ingine. Nilibadilishwa mara 3. Tukafika mahali kwa kichochoro, ni kama walikuwa wameweka gari zingine 2 parking hapo. Wakaniingisha hapo, wakaniambia wewe leo tunakuua. Sababu wewe umetusumbua sana. Wakachukua maji, tuna maji sijui ni acid, wakaniambia kunywa hii maji wewe unakufa. So kunywa. Nikamwambia hapana, mnaniua, siwaje tu nikufe kuliko nipatie acid nikunywe. Kidogo baada mzuri, sijui ni raia waliona wakati nimetolewa kwa hii gari nikiweko kwa hii, wakaanza kupiga mayoyo. Sasa wakaanza kusema hapana, watu wanakuja wakiongea kwa mwingine anasema piga hii risasi mara moja turushe hapo kwa mahindi.
Remember this?
Kaona gari imerudi na wamekuja na mtu na wamemfunga mikono na miguu na wakaanza kumchapa. Walikuwa wamemfunga na kamba. Na wakaanza kumchapa.
Kunipiga wamenipiga huku. Huko walikuwa wananipiga kila mahali, wamenifinya sehemu zangu za siri. Wananipiga sana. Walikuwa wananiambia wananiua.
His testimony cannot independently verify who made those statements, but it offers a glimpse into the fear experienced by those caught in the attack. Yet there is something about the maroon jacket. We have seen it before, not just in the violent attack on the DCP roadshow truck, but we have seen what seems to be the same clothing on a man who was fairly close to the UDA candidate Mushina Nyaga at a campaign road stop. And here, the face of the wearer of the jacket is completely identifiable, and we see traces of orange on the top part of his t-shirt. The rest, as is seen in other types of footage, is white. This is an image picked from Mushina's official Facebook page, dated and indicated to be the morning of 11th July 2026, the same day as when the attack in Shokereria happened, the same day that the DCP soundtrack was attacked. Our investigation is tying this man at the Mawingo meeting in a charcoal shirt to this man at the Moiri Primary School meeting in a maroon jacket and a khaki trouser. Through striking similarities, we are also tying him to the attack on residents of Shokereria in the company of those who attempted to assault KTN cameraman Kimani Wakiru, and still connecting him to the attack on the DCP campaign truck. This is the man seen right here behind the vehicle of the UDA candidate and appearing to be among his security detail. Here in these photos, the maroon jacket man is seen as being among the individuals forming what is ideally a security ring around the UDA candidate's vehicle as Mushina addresses the crowd. The walkie-talkie man has also been seen before around the UDA candidate Mushina Nyaga. He is here again, appearing as part of the security detail, a walkie-talkie in hand. At this stage in the investigation, important questions remain unanswered. Were the individuals captured at campaign meetings the same individuals later seen at scenes of violence? Why do the same vehicles continue appearing across multiple incidents? Why do clothing patterns, physical characteristics, and movements appear repeatedly across different locations? The answers may lie in the footage itself. The vehicles, the clothing, the faces, the movements, and the recurring figures that continue to appear whenever violence erupts. The sling-bag man, the walkie-talkie man, the maroon jacket man, the black trench coat man, and others whose identities remain unknown. In the next phase of this investigation, we begin comparing the images frame by frame. Because if these same men are appearing at campaign meetings, cash distribution operations, and violent confrontations, then the question is no longer whether the similarities exist. The question becomes what those similarities mean. The following day, Sunday, less than 24 hours after the violence in Shokereria, less than 24 hours after journalists came under attack, less than 24 hours after a DCP campaign truck was chased, damaged, and nearly set ablaze. By then, the events had become national news. Media houses across the country were reporting on the violence. Witnesses had spoken of Toyota Prados. Journalists had spoken of armed men. Videos of the confrontations were already circulating. But while the country was still processing what had happened, another political event was underway, this time in Captain area. A football tournament organized in support of UDA candidate Mushina Nyaga. Our cameras were there, and what we found immediately stood out. The large SUVs that had featured prominently in previous events on mainstream and social media were largely absent. Instead, smaller vehicles appeared around the tournament grounds. Many of them carried no visible registration plates. But something remained unchanged: the people. Because many of the faces our investigations had documented over the previous 2 days were present once again. Only this time, the atmosphere was very different. There were no running battles, no campaign convoys, no scenes of confrontation. No one was concealing their face. The men who appeared repeatedly throughout our investigation moved openly among the crowd, talking, laughing, watching football, and interacting freely with political leaders and organizers. Among them was the sling bag man. At one point, our cameras captured a striking image. The sling bag man walking almost side by side with UDA candidate Mushina Nyaga. The two appear within the same frame, moving in the same direction, separated by only a short distance. The footage does not establish the nature of their relationship. It does not reveal what, if anything, was discussed, nor does it establish any involvement by the candidate in the activities our investigations has documented elsewhere. But it does place the two men in close proximity at the event. And it raises questions, because by this point, the slingbag man was no longer simply another face in the crowd. For 3 consecutive days, our cameras had documented his presence at campaign meetings, around areas where money was being dished out, alongside individuals repeatedly appearing through our investigation, and now at a football tournament organized in support of the same political campaign. Monday, July 13th, the final day of official campaigns. The rallying for Ol Kalou constituency votes had entered its final hours. Both UDA and DCP held major rallies in Ol Kalou town. The campaigns concluded within the timelines prescribed by electoral regulations. The crowds dispersed, the candidates left, and for a brief moment, it appeared that the campaign period would end peacefully. But as darkness fell, another incident emerged, one that would once again raise questions about the pattern of violence that had accompanied the by-election campaign. The first report came from the social media page of East African Legislative Assembly Member of Parliament, Kanini Kega, who posted that he had come under attack in neighboring Oljororok constituency. The incident occurred shortly after he left the final DCP campaign meeting in Ol Kalou. Moments after seeing the claim, I immediately proceeded to the scene. What I found was a vehicle that exhibited various damages: windows shattered, body panels bashed, marks of a seeming violent confrontation. At the time, Kanini Kega was sheltering at a nearby shop. He appeared shaken. We briefly captured him on camera. His driver was also present, appearing visibly distressed by what had happened. Shortly afterwards, officers from Kasuku police station arrived and began processing the scene. We spoke to various eyewitnesses, according to whom several vehicles had been traveling behind Kega's vehicle. They say that when he reportedly escaped on foot, the pursuing group arrived moments later. Unable to find him, they allegedly turned their attention to the vehicle. The attackers then extensively damaged the legislator's Toyota Land Cruiser V8. As police documented the scene, several items attracted attention. Among them was a piece of wood which those at the scene believed came from the handle of an AK-47 rifle. A live round was also reportedly recovered, But another discovery would raise even more questions. After police officers completed their initial processing and began leaving the area, our team recovered what appeared to be a live round of ammunition. Subsequent examination indicated it was consistent with an AK-47 cartridge. We immediately attempted to hand the round over to police officers who remained at the scene. The officers declined to receive it. Concerned about preserving the evidence, we transported the live round to Kasuku police station ourselves. Even there, we initially encountered resistance. Officers were reluctant to receive the bullet or record a statement regarding its recovery. Eventually, however, the round was handed over and formally surrendered to the authorities. The following day, another piece of evidence emerged. CCTV footage obtained by our investigation captured several vehicles moving through the area at high speed around the time of the attack. The vehicle sequence is notable: a black Toyota Land Cruiser, followed by a double cabin pickup, a Toyota Prado, and a smaller red vehicle. The movements captured on the footage bear similarities to descriptions provided independently by Kanini Kega and by witnesses interviewed at the scene.
At around 6:10 or 6:20, we left the venue, of course in different vehicles. I was driving along the Ol Kalou Nyahuru Road when a white double cabin D-Max vehicle abruptly stopped in front of us. One person, because I remember that one person on the passenger seat getting out and brandishing a pistol facing me. And that is the reason that is the time I realized that we are under attack. I told my driver, let's escape from this scene. And the good thing is that my driver was able to swerve away from the vehicle, because at that particular time, the other occupants of that pickup were trying to open their doors. We were able to swerve and evade them. But a little bit ahead, a Prado, either gray or black in color, and it was a new car, blocked us again. But we were able also to avoid them. We had to get out of the road. We evaded them, and a chase ensued. We were chased by those two vehicles coming bumper to bumper with us. And we were only lucky that at some point we were able to overtake some two trucks. And then we were able to avoid an oncoming vehicle. That is where they lost us for some time. Because we were able to overtake, they were not able to overtake.
Those witness accounts were also documented by a separate NTV news crew.
Na wenye walikuwa kwa gari ya aidha V8 walikuwa wawili, wakashuka vizuri polepole, wakafunga gari, wakapenya kidogo wakujikana pale waliingia. Taka kidogo ndio tukaona Subaru aina ya red imekuja, imemfuata bio, ikakuja imepakua nyuma ya hiyo gari, na kukatokea wanaume kama 6 wakiwa wamebeba bunduki juu.
At this stage, the footage does not establish who was inside the vehicles, nor does it establish who was responsible for the attack. But it does provide an additional piece of evidence that investigators may need to examine. Our investigation had documented a recurring pattern. Reports of political violence, multiple incidents involving convoys of vehicles, repeated references to Prados and other SUVs, and allegations of armed men operating around campaign activities. Whether these incidents are connected remains a question for investigators. But the attack on Kanini Kega added yet another episode to a campaign season already marked by allegations of intimidation, violence, and fear. And as election day approached, the list of unanswered questions continued to grow. Who was behind the attack? Who occupied the vehicles captured on CCTV? Why was a live round of ammunition left at the scene? And why were officers initially reluctant to receive evidence recovered by journalists? Those questions remain unanswered. But by the end of July 13th, one thing was clear. The violence that had shadowed the Ol Kalou campaign had not ended with a final rally. If anything, it appeared to be escalating. Before election day arrived, a curious development stood out. Among the many allegations involving convoys of unmarked vehicles that had surfaced throughout the campaign period, it seemed only one driver was facing criminal charges: Kanini Kega's driver Dickson Ndirango. His crime, according to police records, driving a vehicle without registration plates. He is scheduled to appear in court on July 20th.
We have said no unmarked cars in this area. Anybody who has removed his number plates from his vehicles and is running around, the police have been given clear instructions to impound them. And indeed, one of them have already been impounded and will be arraigned in court on Monday.
Commissioner Hassan, this ordered the police to impound any vehicle that is unmarked. Is it that the IBC has given it now, moving forward, or was it an order that the IBC has placed even during the campaign?
It is a realization out of the campaign period that we realized that there were people who are running around in unmarked cars, and therefore that instruction came a few days ago, and I think it's being enforced.
When exactly? A few days ago, when exactly?
Yesterday, I think, Yesterday, I think, is when the instructions came.
14th of July. So
Yes.
Yes. Thank you very much.
So anybody who's doing that, please stop it.
For many observers, this development raised questions. Throughout the campaign period, there were numerous cases of various vehicles operating displayed registration plates, and more so in broad daylight, in the full glare of the public and the police. And our investigation has so far demonstrated this on various instances. Yet as election day approached, only one driver appeared to have been charged. And now, the day that everyone had been working towards and waiting for, election day. And with it, a fresh wave of violence. If the campaign period had been marked by intimidation and confrontations, election day appeared to take things a step further. Reports began emerging from different parts of the constituency. Convoys of vehicles moving on fuel of bravado and intimidation from one polling center to the next, and the next, and the next, and so on. Groups of men appearing suddenly and disappearing just as quickly. Voters fleeing. Political agents raising alarm. And once again, the now all too familiar vehicles began appearing. Toyota Prados, other black SUVs, double cab pickups, many of the same vehicle types repeatedly documented throughout our investigation. But one vehicle immediately caught our attention, the Nissan X-Trail. This time, however, something had changed. While it had the sporty rims and body cut, the X-Trail had registration plates in place, and the antennae that we spotted as identifiers during previous incidents and events was not there. But for us, as investigators who had spent days tracking the vehicle, the differences were immediately noticeable. Yet despite the changes, several characteristics remained: its shape and body kit, which is not the standard factory model, which are not as easily to change as removing an antennae or screwing on number plates. Notice the silver stripes on its back door and the silver-coated door handles. Also, its movements were on brand, and most importantly, the people associated with it. The footage from various social media users as well as media houses remains consistent with what we had gathered in the course of the time of our investigation. On this day, the boldness that was on display by the masked, gun-wielding individuals formed what were scenes straight out of the movies. They fired at civilians with no remorse, bearing weapons and boldness that reeked power. The bravado seemed to be beyond the possession of firepower. More so, given some of the vehicles were moving with registration plates whose details are traceable on the NTSA platform. They even fired in the direction where uniformed police were, and the gunmen were targeting anyone who was gathering evidence, knowingly or unknowingly, by way of recording videos. And on the afternoon of election day, NTV crew found themselves committing the, quote, crime of filming the atrocities. The perpetrators were not letting it go. The NTV team was doing its work, capturing every moment until they were spotted. Here, videographer George Kiero was recording the happenings when the masked men charged at him, and what the camera does not show is violence meted on him, beatings on his hands, as they demanded that he surrenders the camera, presumably to go and delete the footage he had recorded. He held on to it, defending himself, but they beat him and then tased him, including on the neck. He eventually gave in and released the camera, which the attackers went with.
These are the vehicles that are lobbing tear gas here, and they are masked.
At the same time, NTV's South Rift editor, Bridget Ngana, was filming with her phone alongside Fabiola Akinyi, a young journalist. Bridget ran to the company car, threw her phone in and kept running. Fabiola was met by a gunman who pressed his gun barrel at her stomach and demanded that she hands over her phone, which she did. They took it and left with it, leaving her stomach in knots amid unspeakable trauma. The team was rushed to JM Karaoke Memorial Hospital, a government-owned hospital, for treatment. But the staff there refused to attend to them, pointing to the fear of the government, sounding similar to the police officers who refused to take the bullet we found at the scene where Kanini Kega's vehicle was found. A crippling fear that makes public servants, critical services workers of the state, fear and refuse to serve as they vowed to and are hired to. At JM Karaoke Memorial Hospital in Ol Kalou, there were other patients, victims of the attacks who were in more severe conditions, but they were also denied treatment. Speaking to the level of fear that had been instilled by these operatives, the NTV crew left and sought treatment in Nakuru, where they were successful. Back to the gunmen and their guzzlers. Another team from the NTV investigative desk revealed who some of these vehicles are registered to on the government platform.
Next was this white Toyota Harrier, registration number KDX 410K. Our search found that it is registered to MKS Investments Company, which reportedly deals in the import and trade of motor vehicles. A further search on the company shows that it belongs to a Khalik Mansour, who is from Pakistan. We also searched this black Land Cruiser with a license number plate KDL 477Q. It belongs to a John Njogona Wanjiko, a name eerily similar to a sitting member of parliament.
These vehicles are confirmed to have been ferrying the terrorizing gunmen in Ol Kalou. From our investigation footage, we can identify the following vehicles that were both on the streets carrying the harassing gunmen, to the events preceding the elections. As election day unfolded, we had drawn sufficient threads of curious happenings. Our investigation had accumulated days of footage, campaign rallies, football tournaments, roadside confrontations, attacks on journalists, attacks on political opponents, vehicle movements, and recurring individuals whose presence seemed to follow the violence wherever it occurred. The sling bag man, the walkie-talkie man, the NY cape man, the cash custodian, the maroon jacket man, the black trench coat man. Different days, different locations, different events, yet repeatedly appearing within the same chain of incidents.
Nitasema ya kwamba mimi gari langu imekuwa na number plate ambazo zimekuwa kila mmoja analijua, na hapa Ol Kalou inajulikana na kila mtu. Wale ambao tumekuwa tukitembea na wao magari zao zimekuwa na number plates, lakini nikitembea nimekuwa nikipatana na magari kwa barabara ambazo ni unmarked, huwezi jua ni ya nani. Na ukiangalia hata ya mbunge wa Kieni jana pia alikuwa na number plate. Kwa hivyo mimi nitasema acha idara za uchunguzi zifanye uchunguzi, zijue ni ya kina nani, lakini pia ni vizuri sisi kama wananchi pia tuweze kudumisha amani na pia tuweze kufuata sheria. Kama gari limepewa number plate, acha mtu aweke number plate ili unajulikana wewe ni nani, na tukiangalia gari lako tunalijua.
And now, on election day itself, many of the same patterns appeared to be unfolding once again. The campaign may have ended, but the story was far from over, because election day would produce some of the most dramatic evidence yet. Evidence that would place vehicles, individuals, and incidents side by side, and force investigators to confront a question that had lingered over the entire Ol Kalou by-election campaign. Were these isolated incidents? Were they part of something much larger operating in the shadows of the election? Were these individuals, armed and well-versed with firearms, private gun owners, or police officers? Why were uniformed officers not bothering with them, and even some saluting them at roadblocks instead of arresting them for openly disobeying the law? Ol Kalou, for weeks and more so days to the by-election, was not just a political battleground, it was a crime scene.
These allegations of some other persons who are causing havoc in the Ol Kalou must be investigated thoroughly, and anyone who is culpable must be arrested, regardless of their what they were doing and who deployed them to Ol Kalou.
The government, through this NTV Investigates dispatch, has sufficient leads that it itself could have documented with even greater capability given its resources, if it wanted and if it was keen on the same. The crime scene details are out there, but so are the criminals. But for how long? Ibrahim Karanja, NTV Investigates.